Carl Jung, masculinity. I finally think I understand what maybe Annalene Mummy God saw in me, but not really because nothing these people do make any goddamn sense. Carl Jung archetypes of mature masculinity. Jung's psychology identifies four primary archetypes that represent the mature or divine masculine energy. Summoning these energies involve moving from their shadow, immature forms to their light, mature expressions. The king represents order, blessing, and sovereignty. To summon this, focus on taking responsibility and providing a container of safety for yourself and others. Uh, I have. I think that one because once again, responsibility. If stupid conversation and elite mummy god. So all this guy has to do is take responsibility, and then you'll give him the $4 billion, and everything will be fixed, right? Yeah, and I was like, and you're not going to do anything stupid, like make him do something really stupid and impossible, right? And he went, ah! Because that bastard has to bastard. They can't just let it be that simple. It has to make. They have to make it hurt for no reason, because suffering is good for you. This is what happens when you're from a violent, stupid people with a violent, stupid culture. Second complaint I want to talk about, compassion. Compassion. Malignant narcissists will always tell you to have compassion. What they mean is to have compassion for them. They're not going to have it for you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't have that ability. Thank you. Anyways, warrior represents action, boundaries, and discipline. The energy is summoned through decisive action and the courage to protect what is right. I have a bit of that trait too. Magician represents wisdom, insight, transformation, summons this by developing self-awareness and rational thinking. I have that in spades. Lover represents connection, feeling, appreciation of life, energy, balance, and other ensure strength. And look, the only way I'm going to get to be a lover is if I abduct a woman, beat, rape, and waterboard her and put her in a fucking container under my house because these people will murder her otherwise. And explaining to her this is for your safety is going to be extremely difficult, but don't worry, I'll get it done. How to summon these energies, the Jungian approach. According to Jungian principles, you don't create this energy, you integrate it by making the unconscious conscious. Identify the shadow, recognize where your masculine energy is unhealthy, e.g., be a bully or being passive stagnant, which I guess is what I am. Jung believed that everything unhealed arises to the surface to be transmuted into light. Engage in the anima, animus, and enema. For men, this involves balancing masculine drive with the enema, inner femininity feeling. For women, summoning the divine masculine often involves developing animus and the inner capacity for logic, direction, and backbone. Practice active imagining. Jung encouraged active imagination and meditative techniques where you dialogue with these archetypes in your mind to understand what they require from you. Embrace responsibility. Key. A key trigger for mature masculine energy is the shift from blaming external factors to owning your own life choices. You see, that one's a really big problem with me because I was put under a fucking contract that deprives me of things. These people have kept over $4 billion out of my hands, and they have dicked me over at every turn, and they're like, you need to take responsibility for us behaving like complete pieces of shit. It is so hard to just say take responsibility for the actions of other people who are just fucking stupid. Okay? And they're mad as fuck that they're dumb as shit. They are mad as fuck that they're dumb as shit. Okay. Am I saying I don't want to take responsibility? No, I want to take responsibility. They just put a wall up and then they go, oh, you don't want to take responsibility because we put a wall in the way. And you can't overcome the wall we put. That makes you irresponsible. That is not what irresponsibility is. Irresponsibility is if I was refusing to take responsibility for my actions. The fact that I have called the FBI and turned myself in many times tells you I'm willing to take responsibility. I'm just not allowed. Seek the sacred union. Wholeness comes from when masculine energy, yang, works with harmony with the feminine energy. Working in harmony, yay. I asked the AI, what triggers the shift from shadow to mature masculine energy? In Jungian psychology, the shift from shadow immature to mature masculine energy is primarily triggered by humility, responsibility, and symbolic death of the ego. Humility, have that in spades. Responsibility, I want to have it, I'm just not allowed because we have to make sure Blondie looks like the responsible one. This is what happens when you rig things and you make it facetious. People point out that you rigged it and made it facetious. Symbolic death of the ego. I guess you just imagine your ego dying. I kind of experienced that earlier this year, so yeah. The transition is not natural byproduct of aging, but conscious psychological process of individuation, which is also a mental disorder, internalizing everything. The transition occurs through several specific psychological turning points. The sacrifice of the ego, moving from the hero archetype driven by personal glory and the need to prove oneself to the warrior, requires realizing one's own limitations and morality, something Blondie does not have. Assuming responsibility, the king energy is triggered when individuals stop seeking to be served the divine child and accepts the crown of responsibility for the well-being of others. I would love to wear that crown. I'm not allowed to. Acknowledging of the shadow. Jung argued that growth is impossible until you are shocked into seeing yourself as you really are, rather than how you wish to be. This confrontation is the first step of courage. Been dealing with myself forever down here. It hasn't really been working though. I can't imagine why. Oh wait, ADHD people require help. Something I'm not allowed to have. Thanks for the kneecap. That's fucking wonderful. You guys are great at that. A midlife crisis, impasse, often a period of sterility or crisis in middle age, triggers the need to find deeper spiritual meaning, moving the focus from material success to inner self. Submission to the mentorship. Maturity is often triggered by humility to seek help and the willingness to learn from elders and mentors rather than try to figure everything out alone. Listen to this line right here. Right here. Submission to a mentorship. Maturity often is triggered by the humility to seek help and the willingness to learn from an elder or mentor rather than trying to figure everything out alone. This is what I told Anal Eating Mummy God and Blondie at Papa John's. You should not be doing this shit alone. And it literally says right here in the psychology manual. Remember, Blondie was the guy that came up with Carl Jung. Try listening to Carl Jung, you stupid fuck. The transformative process, archetype, shadow trigger, immature. Mature triggers, king, tyranny and weakness, accepting the duty, bless and protect others. I don't know what's up with the bless thing, but whatever. Warrior, sadism and masochism, things Blondie does. Accepting morality and serving the cause greater than oneself, something he can never do. Magician, manipulation or detachment, devoting acknowledge to true mastery for the benefit of society. Lover, addiction or impotence, unplugging from dependency and choosing to give love. I have always said, this is not a joke, love that woman. It is not that hard. Love that woman. Stop thinking about it, just do it. Now, so active imagination is the other side of this, and it's something I've been practicing. And the only thing I view is a giant mountain and surrounded by kings. I've also tuned out my superego in order so I can relate better to masculine energies. Fortunately for me, the AI exists, and ADHD people need a lot of help with these things. So I can now use the AI to actually help me actually get better. Yeah. And I would recommend, if you're a man and you're struggling with masculinity, using the AI through the Carl Jung stuff and exploring it yourself. Thumbs way up. Active imagination is a conscious meditative process used to bridge the gap between your conscious mind and unconscious. Unlike daydreaming, it requires you to be an active participant in a dialogue with your inner archetypes. The 4 steps of active imagination process: preparation and individualization. Find a quiet, private space where you will not be disturbed. Relax your body and empty your ego consciousness of daily distractions. You can invite a figure by focusing on specific moods, dreams, fragments, or a fullness of an archetype, such as imagining a king figure that resonates with you. Observation and dialogue. Once an image or figure arises, observe its movements objectively without trying to control them. Start a polite but firm conversation. Ask the figure, "Who are you? What do you want from me? What message do you have?" Note: maintain your real ego during this. Don't just passively watch or pretend to be someone else. Actually listen. To anchor the experience in reality, give the encounter a tangible form. Record the dialogue in a journal, draw the figure, or even use clay to sculpt it. Jung believed the unconscious content wants to be seen clearly by being given a shape. Ethical confrontation and integration. This is the most critical step. View the dialogue and treat the inner figure claims with the same scrutiny you would a real person. You must decide how to integrate their wisdom into your daily life. For example, if a warrior tells you to set a boundary at work, your next step is to actually do it in the physical world. Would you like to try a specific prompt? The warrior's dialogue for boundary setting. This is something I asked about. Active imagining, because boundary setting is exactly why Anal Mummy God wanted me to punch that guy. Once again, had everybody been forthcoming with this information instead of being vague, we could have got to the bottom of this much faster. And I could have worked on this much sooner. But everybody wanted to be stupid. Active imagination with the warrior archetype focuses on access your innate capacity for personal power, assertiveness, and discipline. To set boundaries, you must engage the mature warrior, the part of you that knows how to say no clearly to protect your integrity and values. Active imagination, dialogue, and boundary setting. Follow these steps to conduct a dialogue within your inner warrior. Invoke the figure, visualization, a situation where your boundaries are currently being crossed. Invite a symbol figure representing the warrior to appear. This could be a traditional knight, modern athlete, or a quiet, grounded presence. Establish the presence. Observe the warrior's equipment and posture. Mature warriors often carry a symbolic sword, not to attack, but to defend territory, and establish what is me and mine. The dialogue speaks to a figure from your own perspective, your ego. Where am I allowing my sacred territory to be invaded? What fear is preventing me from saying no in this situation? Allow the warrior to respond through thoughts, feelings, and direct words. It may point to the need for discipline or a clear commitment to your values. Confront the shadow. If the warrior seems overly aggressive, the tyrant, or overly passive, the weakling, challenge it. Ask, what are you trying to protect me from by being aggressive or passive? Commit to action. Active imagination only works in if it results in a real world change, ask the warrior, what is one specific boundary I must set today? Prompting questions for the warrior. Use these prompts during the session to sharpen the boundaries and set skills. What would I say if I weren't afraid of being rejected? I'm not afraid of being rejected, so whatever the fuck I want. Which of my values is currently being compromised by silence? It's not silence. It's the fact that I was given a ridiculous task to fulfill that boundary. How can I assert my energy without becoming aggressive or rigid? I can't, because that's not what the made-up rules created. What part of my life needs more minimalism and decluttering of other expectations? Probably my room. So, I also asked it, we're at 15 minutes, but would you like to examine the shadow form of the warrior, the tyrant, or the weakling? I basically said yes to this. So this part really isn't that important, but this is just everything this church is in one goal, which is all the bad things Jung said that they would be. In Jungian thought, as developed by Robert Moreau and Douglas Gillett, the warrior archetype exists on a spectrum between two shadow poles and sadists, active shadow and the masochist. Well, the tyrant and weakling are technically the shadows of the king archetype. They work in tandem with the warrior shadow to sabotage your boundaries. The sadist, active shadow. The sadist is an inflated version of the warrior. This energy sabotages boundaries by turning them into weapons of control rather than tools of protection. Think about how this church is like, we're going to protect the manifest. Also, we're going to control them by eating their brains. How it manifests. You might find yourself using boundaries to punish others, being unnecessarily cruel, or exploding in a rage when you feel slightly inconvenienced. Every member of this church ever. Sabotage. The sabotage. It destroys the very relationship you were trying to protect by replacing firm, calm communication with intimidation and bullying. Everything this church does. The internal root, this behavior often covers a hidden sense of powerlessness and insecurity. Everything this church does. The masochist, passive shadow. The masochist is a deflated version of the warrior. This energy sabotages boundaries through total abdication and positivity. How it manifests. You become a pushover who allows others to walk over you. You may hate your situation, but dig in and take more abuse, often feeling like a martyr. The sabotage it prevents you from ever setting boundaries in the first place, leading to shame and an eventual explosion of sadist shadow. Yeah, probably. The internal root, it stems from the belief that you are powerless or that you deserve the suffering. I mean, I'm just going to openly admit that I have a bit of this in me. I don't know about being a pushover, because this is a thing that happened with Blondie where he was like, we were poisoning you with heavy metals! Why didn't you stop us? Because I told you to stop. I told you I didn't want to be poisoned, and you did it anyways. Once again, if I hit you, you're a church leader. Your people kill me, okay? Why is that so hard to understand? And look, once again, if the president is willing to say, I can kill your fucking church leaders with my bare hands, in person, without any consequences, I will set that boundary. The other side of it is stupid. I punch him, you kill me. Somebody shouldn't have to turn violent to get you to stop hurting them. Somebody shouldn't have to turn violent to get you to stop hurting them. You should know your actions are wrong. If you are incapable of knowing your actions are wrong, you are incapable of leading. You are incapable of being in charge, and you are incapable of holding power of any kind, because you yourself have no ability to look at your own actions and go, I shouldn't have done that. The word is, I'm sorry, something Blondie can never say, because he's a bastard. Thank you. In cases with the Shadow Act bipolar pair, a person may live primarily as a masochist, suppressing their need and letting people cross their lines until they reach a breaking point and snap into the sadist, lashing out in verbal physical abuse.